Oh, I didn't even try to do that. The one day that it just like matches perfect. But on the other days, it's not a shade. Exactly. I meant to do that. That's right. Hey! Wow, you appeared out of nowhere. Startled me. That's hilarious. How are you guys? I'm good. How are you? Yes. Yeah, this is kind of an ongoing thing. This is the time of year, the spring graduation, where we record volunteer hours. And so there'll be many more of these, and this is just not my current assignment. But I'll share.
Good. Yep.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. We'll start with roll call.
Dawn Cassius and
Jessica Clayton.
Present.
Yeah. Okay, Jessica Clayton, present. This notice of the meeting was posted on April 7th, 2023. Can I get a motion for approval of minutes? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So the first item to discuss is the possible action and discussion regarding chair and vice chair for 2023. Since we had a change in regards to the District 2 office and the District 3 office, I wanted to see who would serve in those positions moving forward. I would be happy to chair if.
Sure.
Okay. Dawn, would you like to continue to vice chair?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we are actually going to skip to number 5 and number 10, because we do have Grant Billingsley as well as Judge Stoner and Mr. Rabbits in the room. Number 5 is discussion and possible action regarding an update related to the transfer of the SHINE program from Oklahoma County District 2 to the Oklahoma Court Services Department, to also include policies, procedures, and other information related to the program. And so, Grant, would you like to come up and give us an update, please?
If I might, why don't we do 10 before we do 5?
You wanna do-
Five might take a while.
Yeah,
Okay.
10's going to take about 2 seconds.
Okay, let's do
we
that.
talked yesterday. I wasn't aware that there were some hiccups with 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock situation. For long before me, the office is closed from 12 to 1. That's just the way it's always ran. And it's fixed, it's changed. We're open, so there's not going to be any issues with defendants who may come in between that time to get signed up. So that's a non-issue. The other thing for Judge Stoner, he's here. He's welcome to speak. I talked with him yesterday of streamlining the process, and his folks that are, tell me if I'm wrong, I messed this up, because his court goes pretty late and it goes past normal work hours. So most people that are given community service, that are given SHINE after hours, aren't able obviously to come into the community service office and get set up and scheduled. So we have a process in place. It will be permanently in place here in the next couple of days, that they won't have to do that, and they can have a certain amount of paperwork already in his courtroom that can be signed by them. He'll be able to sign on the order that all paperwork is approved, and his staff will be able to bring it to us first thing early in the morning. That way those defendants don't miss or get a violation or something for not doing their community service. So this does work. This does work well, and I don't see any issues with it. Judge, you're welcome to add anything if you want.
On the issue of hours, I do think we have that resolved, at least for now. And maybe just as a point of information, there are over 3,000 treatment courts in the United States. Oklahoma County now is like the 22nd largest metropolitan area in the United States. Our Oklahoma County treatment courts are in the top 1% in terms of size of programs across the United States. And we are busting at the seams. And we are, I think we're very efficient and completely under-resourced. And so I really do appreciate Grant and their office having some flexibility and some creativity so we can continue to handle as many people as possible. And being flexible with some of the structures so we can get them signed up, because our courts typically, it's not uncommon for our court to go to 6 o'clock every night. And so people that are getting sanctions, they got to get their sanction done. And so they go to the office, it's closed, and they come down over the lunch hour to get signed up. And I really do appreciate Grant and being creative and innovative to try to be flexible to accommodate our participants. So thank you, Grant. But that's all I have on this particular issue. So thank you.
Thank you for that update.
You bet.
And thank you, Grant. Any update on SHINE?
I have a question. What, I didn't know the reference to 12 to 1. Is that new or is that a change?
What was it again?
You started with a reference to 12 to 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock during the lunch hour. Court service is always closed down to allow for the lunch hour for staff. However, it helps the treatment courts because they have issues with some of their defendants coming over at that time to get signed up. And it's honestly, it's a very simple fix. We already have it arranged where it's the front desk is covered. So it's very simple. It's no big deal.
I think you said until this item appeared, you had never been made aware that there was an issue.
Right. Yeah. I was never aware that there was a problem. So
You
yeah,
just fixed it yourself.
Yeah. Within not even 10 seconds. So
Okay.
Perfect. So no action.
No. Not on that. Continue.
Yeah.
Okay. So for SHINE, quick update. So,
wait,
I'm
let's
sorry, go
do
ahead.
this. How about a motion to receive Grant's update on item 10?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we'll move to number 5 with an update in
Okay.
regards to SHINE.
Okay, and this is perfect. This is a great opportunity to get some definitive direction for me exactly on expectations and goals and what you guys expect from me, and what you need me to do as it's been transferred. Shine's been transferred over to me. Just and I'm sure we'll be able to come up with that today. Just remember, well, first of all, I've had an opportunity to meet all the Shine staff, the crew, and these are great people. There's a couple brand new employees into that, and there's a couple people with a lot of knowledge of how it's run, and these are some good people. First and foremost, for Shine to succeed, and for me to succeed as a director and the department to succeed, I'm going to need help from you guys with the courts that they continue to sentence people to Shine. Without that happening, then there's no one, potentially to do the Shine. Next, we'll need those participants to actually show up and sign up to do Shine. And then the next step past that, we're going to need those folks to actually come out and do the Shine. So for Shine to even be able to go out and do anything, it needs participants and it needs people to be put in there. So just so you're aware, that's based on my success. So my success up front is based on some parameters I can't control. So I'll need some assistance on that. Let's see, updates. So I got a few things here. Let me list some of the things that I found we do, that Shine does kind of somewhat on a daily basis. So contract work. So contract work is, as you guys know, there's a contract with Oklahoma City, contract with Del City, the Zoo Trust, and those are based on, and tell me if I'm wrong, the amount of people that are out doing that work and the amount of hours and time spent within that location. Those hours are collected and billed to those contract groups, and then they in turn pay monthly on the amount of time and hours that we do that contract work. Included in that contract work is, I'm assuming, the most important part, which is hotspots. So the homeless outreach team through Oklahoma City PD has a hot team, and they've identified several spots throughout Oklahoma City where there's regularly on a daily basis litter, trash, you name it, that comes from, could come from homeless folks or other avenues. So we hit those spots on a daily basis, and those hours are turned into the city for what we just mentioned. So that's one of the main things we do. Those are also identified through the city vacated homeless camps. The hot team will go out and they'll identify the homeless camp. Whatever they do. That's their job, and they do a great job at it. As soon as those spots are vacated, then we would come up behind them and clean up the litter and the trash. Staff's been instructed if it's active, meaning if there's actual people living there, we're not to touch anything. We leave. If there's any issues with angry people that show up or something like that, which does happen, they're instructed to leave. We're not throwing away, the tents, certain things like that, where it could be somebody's home. We're picking up the trash and the litter from those spots. So that would be another spot we do. Let's see.
Do you want questions as we go?
Absolutely.
Or at the end?
That'll slow me down because I'll need some water here in a second.
So, I forgot my water as well. As y'all are picking up, say just trash in general, but these homeless encampments, are you providing the participants in the program with gloves and tools to do the job? How does that work?
So I should have brought that, and I failed to do so. And that's one thing I'll need some direction from this board. Obviously, our staff is fully equipped with the necessary PPE. The participants have not been provided the gloves, masks. They're on their own to bring that themselves. I had Brad and Dawn with Health and Safety ride with the staff to see kind of how they do things and what they do, and that was one of the things. And I apologize. I should have brought that, and I completely flaked. I didn't bring it. I apologize. Their report. And one of the things they mentioned they felt important was to provide the participants as well with necessary PPE. So with that's going to be another funding source. It's going to cost money, obviously. I mean, it hasn't been done in the past, but my suggestion would be to go along with them to provide that.
Have you included that in your estimate of needs?
I don't. Yes. I don't.
Did you do the estimate
I,
needs?
I don't know. I'll go double check.
Okay, and that, providing that type of PPE wouldn't be anything unlike when we had the Prisoner Public Works program with the Department of Corrections, where the districts were responsible for providing gloves, we even provided boots. We kept a stock of that, so I don't know that it would be anything significantly different than what we've done in the past.
I'll certainly look into to that extent.
And providing that would seem to make for a more productive work unit as well.
Right. So provide that stuff to participants.
That would seem to be
Okay. Yeah.
safe.
And that's
Or
something we can discuss here. We can certainly add that to the
It's in
funding
there.
for
Yeah, it's accounted.
the boots and for the participants.
Our employees have still.
Oh yeah, were you talking about? I'm sorry, the employees or the participants?
I heard you say the employees are provided that, but those that have been assigned to Shine to perform community service aren't provided anything.
Right. Our staff are actually county employees. They all have steel toe boots. They have all that.
And generally they ask.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
Generally, they ask the participants to bring their own gear, but if they cannot provide their own gear, then generally it is provided for them.
So I'll find out where so we have
So I
we
heard
have boots.
it is
and-
provided and it's not provided.
So we do have boots and all that stuff.
For the employees.
Oh, okay, for the employees, but not the participants.
But if
That's where
I'm picking up trash, if I'm assigned
Excuse me.
to Shine,
PPE, meaning like gloves,
personal
masks.
protective equipment.
Yes, those sorts of things are provided to the participants. If they are not able to provide it themselves, they are also provided safety vests as well. The participants are not provided steel-toed boots. Only our employees are provided steel-toe boots.
Okay.
Okay.
I am glad that we're addressing the concerns, Joe, for safety of the participants. So thank you for doing that and making sure that PPE is provided.
Okay, so we'll make sure we do
Absolutely.
that. Mask, gloves,
Absolutely,
sort of
that we
stuff.
have resources available to keep everyone safe.
How are potentially hazardous materials handled? I mean, it's just a fact that a lot of people who are experiencing homeless have disabilities, mental disabilities, or co-occurring disorders with drug and alcohol. What precautions are taken there? Do you deal with that? Do you not deal with it? How is all that handled?
From what I know, anything that has bodily fluids on it or that area, we won't touch. That's about at this point the best I can answer until.
Okay.
Yeah. We won't ask people to pick that up.
Okay.
Any other questions on PPE?
Say that Brad did a ride along.
Brad and Dawn, yeah,
Okay, and you said they did a report?
correct. I'll send that to you. Absolutely.
I would like
Yeah,
to
and
see
I apologize. That's my fault. I should have brought that for you today.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
I think that was a great idea.
Anything else on PPE?
I don't.
No, just see the report and then
Yeah.
perhaps additional questions later.
Okay. Let's see, next, so we got removal and disposal of like building materials. So for example, a remodel of a home, or someone has purchased a home and they're gonna flip it or fix it up and rent it. Those people will go in and do the remodel and bring that building material out to the curb, and then we've followed up behind and done the debris pickup and removal, disposal and removal of that material. We've had some meetings. We met Friday specifically about that and some concerns that may be with that. But that particular job, I know there's a lot of working with associations like the Realtors Association, Builders Associations, and other groups, that would be a function that they do to help those companies to raise market values in Oklahoma City and different things like that. So Jessica, you could probably help a little more on that, where we're at with that.
Absolutely. So we had a meeting on Friday, and Grant brought up some concerns around providing removal services for those that are doing renovations. And so I sent a request for DA services opinion. And so we're in the process of receiving that feedback from them. And so once that's confirmed, I definitely will provide that for you and can provide it for these committee members in
So-
regards to what that looks like.
Expand on that a little bit. I'm in the home remodel business, and I can contact you, and you'll haul away my trash.
That's, from my understanding, that's been part of the operation of Shine.
And who knows about it? How is it communicated?
I honestly don't know
Okay.
how that word is out, or who is aware of it, or how it works. Like we mentioned, there was some concerns from myself about doing that, and
Well, I
And
appreciate
is-
y'all keeping Grant out of hot water on that. That's really important.
Yeah, well, we want to make sure that we get those questions answered and we handle it the right way.
yeah, and I don't want to not do it if I'm supposed to and get myself
Yeah.
in some sort of trouble, or the commissioners or different districts for doing something or not doing something. And that's why I'm glad we're talking today, because I'm here to do the best I can to make this grow and become, if even possible, even better than it already is. But with that being said, I'm going to need, like I said, some definitive direction exactly on some things you do want us to do, you don't want us to do. A list, urgency list, what's most urgent. I know there are some concerns in the event that trash is left out on the side of the road, that potentially that person could be cited by the city. If they're cited by the city, it could turn into a lawsuit of some sort to the county, and I don't want that on me. I mean, I've worked in government for over 25 years. I've never had the smallest of issue in any fashion. I've done 10 years as a police officer. I've never had an issue with anything like that. I don't want my name on anything that potentially I could have done or didn't do or shouldn't have done. So that's certainly something we need to figure out.
Yeah. The legal question was, can we pick up debris from renovations? In the policies and procedures, it does state, may I read these? And so I have,
Yeah.
okay. In regards to the scope of work, coordinated cleanup efforts as to service to all Oklahoma County citizens, businesses, organizations, providing that they give a SHINE program notice in order to schedule a pickup and materials are left on the right of way or public easement. So from what I understand, oh, Bob, would you like to come up here?
I'd just like to make a suggestion for the board. For the last 25 years since we had a program before the state ever did anything, and that's why we're grandfathered in with community service. We've had an advisory board made up of the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, public defender, a district judge, the district attorney, and whatever. My suggestion is that you all direct Grant to actually come up with policies and procedures. If we had known that it wasn't open over the noon hour, somebody would have brought it to the attention. He would have sat there and said, "You're right," and took care of it like he did when he was notified yesterday. But I think policies and procedures have to go a little bit further. I don't think you can sit there. I think it's the absolute wrong deal to sit there and right on the spur of the moment call the DA's office and say, "Hey, I want an opinion." If everything was run initially through that committee, it would still have to be run through you guys. Don't get me wrong, but if there's a DA there who could say, "Grant, I think that's questionable. Something needs to be done right away." But if we had specific policies and procedures, i.e., what SHINE could do, what community sentencing could do, what community service can do, how it goes. If somebody shows up at 2 minutes to 5, which has been one of the issues for some of the judges, 2 minutes to 5, that's before 5, and they say, "Well, it's going to take 20 minutes to get done." Well, maybe that's so. Maybe they need to be there by 4:30. I don't, and that would be for you all to ultimately decide. But the committee could at least then make a recommendation. Then you have policies and procedures, and you don't have subject to the whim of whoever the next director was, because I'm going to tell you, for 3.5 months before Oklahoma County hired a new director of community service, the district judges asked me to do, and this is in '05, I think, asked me to do both. And let me tell you, it's a super headache and whatever, that they actually had me as temporary director of court services. And, it's a big position, but if you had policies and procedures put on board, it makes it so much easier. And will it take a couple months to do that? Absolutely. I mean, but if it's not done as a team, you know what's going to happen? Public defenders will do everything possible to not put that person in community service or not put that person in shine. If the district judges have a super problem with how it's being run, guess what's going to happen? They won't be put in the program. If the DA says there's something inappropriate about X, Y, or Z, even if the chief DA doesn't agree with that, they won't put them in the program, won't recommend them for the program. But if we had those policies and procedures with the opportunity to change them, come back before the community sentencing board, then bring it to your board, to me, I think it would really make for a lot better program. That's just my suggestion.
So is there a committee in place for Shine? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
Or
it's
committee
for community service. It's not for Shine. It's specific. There was no oversight of the Shine Committee. It consists of Mr. Freeman, Mr. Warren, right now it'd be Commissioner Mon. I don't think it has to be the chairman. I looked. It says the chairman or his or her designee is what it says. It doesn't say. So it could be another commissioner. However, the commissioners decided to do it. The district attorney has a representative. I have a representative. The district court has a representative, and the sheriff has a
Okay.
representative.
So could you bring these concerns and direction to that committee and then be able to work through those issues and be able to present them? I think that would be very helpful for you.
Well,
What do you think, Joe?
you said you'd ask for DA's opinion on some of this already?
So in that Friday meeting, Grant asked for us to be able to ask the DA in regards to those issues. So we have a DA opinion that has been submitted for dumpster partners, which I'm sure you were going to get to that as well. And then also in regards to the question and concern that Grant had in picking up debris from renovation projects. But we're still waiting for a final DA opinion on the renovations.
It would seem that having that information would be a logical starting point, whether it's your advisory board or this group or the Board of County Commissioners to make some decisions on policies and procedures. I think a dual track, Bob, you all take a look at it, see what they're doing. We can continue to take a look at it. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes
I
a lot
don't-
of sense.
I think we're all on the same page that we don't want to do anything that puts the program in danger. And certainly if we're doing something with the best of intentions that might not be permissible, then we need to not do that so as we don't damage the program. So I don't
Like,
think,
for instance, there was an opinion in a different context where a judge was authorizing electronic monitoring as part of whatever, a non-criminal deal.
I'm aware.
And as soon as the opinion wasn't really an opinion, it was written down on a sheet of paper. So Grant's now in a situation, where does it apply, where doesn't it apply? And it put him in, and judges are sitting there saying, can we use it in these type of cases? Well, when I heard that they were doing that, I called the district attorney, and they both said, no, it didn't apply to criminal cases. But we didn't know that, okay? And whatever. So if it's run through a committee initially, I mean, if there's a question about something, it's run it through a committee, then bring it to you guys, and then let the board decide it. And if you need a DA opinion, you need a DA opinion. But if you have policies and procedures in writing, it makes it a lot better for everybody concerned, and everybody's comfortable. I know the district judges in Oklahoma County, if they thought that what they were doing in something in community service was dangerous to the offenders and they didn't have the right equipment, they wouldn't put anybody in community sentencing. So I think it's critical that you spell out what can and cannot be done. I mean, like for instance, we have some in the community sentencing program, which is a separate program. We had some people who were doing certain things and they needed certain type of equipment, i.e. hard shoes, okay? Well, the committee voted to give them the hard shoes or quit doing the program. That was one or two things because most of the people didn't have those. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Work boots is what I'm talking about. And what we ended up, so we need to know that. I mean, obviously it's if you're just picking up trash, it's pretty, or getting rid of graffiti, it's pretty easy to wear whatever you're gonna wear. But if it's doing something that involves heavy work, like knocking down fences or walls or something, or building something, you might need those things. So we need to know about those, and I think the judges do, and I think by and large, it's a better program if we do it that way. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
Bob.
Ravitz.
I'm not sure where we're at, but anything else on that? I think we were on, any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay, so make sure I'm understanding. With regard to the picking up of remodeled debris, I think is how you termed it, that has been stopped pending a DA's deal.
Is that,
Yeah, I mean,
Yes,
yes.
okay,
okay, yes.
all right. And once we get that back, then we can determine, even if it's permissible, whether or not we want to continue down that road. Is that a fair statement?
I think it would be your decision if that's something
Okay, all right.
you want us to do.
Okay, and then you're going to provide us with the report that Brad and Don did,
Correct.
and you'll provide that then to the advisory board as well.
Mhm.
Okay, all right.
Anything else on that? Okay, so let's see. So yeah, partner dump sites. That's the other thing that you mentioned. So yeah, that was another concern I did have. That my suggestion was with the different partner dump sites that there needs to be some sort of contract or something in place that would allow us to utilize other people's dumpsters to put trash in them. And I believe that's being worked on.
So we received the
Yeah.
DA approval back for that. And so what Erin Etherington offered is that we would have to have she approved the contract, but we would also have to have a resolution in regards to that donation of services
Oh, okay.
for each
So,
dumpster partner.
oh, okay. So she's given the response
Mhm.
back and approved an actual form.
Yes.
An actual form.
The
And
form that
then-
we provided you
Okay, so
to
then-
review.
Okay.
And so
then-
that's similar to the graffiti form
okay.
that's in place currently.
Gotcha. Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, we're good to use the dumpster sites. I would use, or somebody would need to go out to those people who own them and let them read this form and sign it and approve it. And then after that,
Why don't you double check with Aaron how that works? But essentially what it sounds like to me is, I see Hannah in the back of the room. Juvenile does a lot of donations, receives a lot of donations, and they itemize out who's provided pizza, who's provided clothing, in this instance, it would be the location of the dumpster, I'm assuming, and the individual that is donating that service. So XYZ, whatever. But just double check with Aaron. But that's what it sounds like Jessica's describing.
And those partnerships have been vital in order to save the program money in regards to the cost of dumping the material
Right,
that is
yeah,
picked
that's-
up.
that's
And
not
so it's
cheap.
been it's been a big blessing. And so to be able to continue, those partners will be really great. And
Right.
so I will provide the DA opinion, and then you can review the form, and we'll go from there.
right. And again, when it comes to these situations, if I have a concern or something, I'm not trying to stop a process. I'm not
No.
trying to change anything. I'm not trying to undo something that's great in the past that's been done. I just, feel being a director, I think it's, and tell me if I'm wrong, that it's my place that I could at least raise the concern and ask the question. And if that's permissible, that's what I'll keep doing. If not, then that's fine too. However, I just feel it's my place to make sure things are on the up and up, but that if there's something does arise that I see, that I should say something. So
Absolutely. And we
Um,
want you to be set up for success, and having an advisory board to run these questions and ideas through will be very beneficial.
So sorry, real quick, just to go back up, some other things we do, assist other county departments. So for example, if so a department which we've seen a lot of movement here in the county already, somebody's going to move from one floor to the next floor or one spot to the next spot, then Shine would come and help those county departments move their furniture from one area to another. That's another thing we can do, and we can continue doing that as we have in the past. Okay, yeah, that was it. Sorry, I just didn't add that one. We one suggestion I was thinking that we could do is there are a lot of call-ins. Like I did mention the contract work, and those are a day-to-day thing. Those are something that's always there and something that we do. But there are call-ins that come in that you're not expecting. You don't know that it's there, and you wake up and all of a sudden you have a call-in. Now, pending approval from those other things, I'm suggesting that I could get with IT or another department, come up with some sort of work order system that you guys could tell me what's most important and what is most urgent. So if a call-in comes in for it, I'm not even going to give you an example, but one that you would deem urgent, then we would put that on the top of the list and bypass what we would normally do and have them go out and do that particular work. If it's not as important, then we can put it lower on the list, and then when time is available, we can go get that cleanup done. So that's
What drives that now? What's the current procedure?
so basically the system right now is we would set up to, on a daily basis, we're already set up to do our contract work. That's something we would do. If a call in happens to come in, then I've learned those are urgent. Those are something that we would have to do immediately. So that's just how it would work. There's no filing system or a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or anything like that. But that's something I'm suggesting that could potentially streamline the process and just make it easier for our folks to know, their daily job, what they got set for the week, or something they may need to do on Wednesday or Thursday, so they're prepared and ready to do it. And also potentially, we could work with the city if there is a call-in that comes in from in the city, and we were to go out and clean it up. That would just be OKC General. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I wasn't following.
You're not listening to me.
I am.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I know I'm dragging on.
I will say OKC General is basically in anything outside of the contract.
Right. So that would normally be, so if you're doing a cleanup job in Oklahoma City, but it didn't come in through the city, they didn't call and ask us to do it, it wasn't a hot spot, then that would be something that we would just do, clean up and move on to the next spot. Now, if those people, if there was some sort of system where they did contact the city and say, hey, I have this need, and here's the reason why, and they vetted that job, then the city could contact us and say, hey, we have this job we'd like to do on top of the hot spots, and then that would be contract work. Because I know one of the things that's been emphasized is we leave a lot of money on the table with contract work. And so I'm just thinking of ways that if that is an issue, that we could do more to potentially tap into that.
Your revenue is derived from the contracts, right?
From the contract and some past donations.
Okay. So are your people are paid, the Shine workers are paid out of those contract funds and or those donations?
Right.
When you say OKC General, that's not billing the city for something that we're picking up within the city limits.
Right.
So an example you gave earlier is that remodeling debris. That is or isn't billed to Oklahoma
That
City.
is not.
So we're drawing down essentially our donation bucket. you'll just go as long, I guess what I'm saying is you'll go as long as you can on your special revenue and combination of donations.
Right.
So it behooves you to focus on the contract work.
It would. It
Okay.
would, because in the event that does happen, then obviously then to fund the department would come from general fund money opposed to all special revenue.
And have you approached other cities about the possibility of entering into contracts
I've
as a
talked-
means of enhancing the revenue and the service that's provided?
I have talked to the city of Choctaw,
Okay.
and we're in talks and looking at a potential contract to allow us to get out there more often, or just to get out there in general. And when we do, and we're doing work for them, then it would be under the contract, and there would be it works somewhat similar to Oklahoma City. Yes. So yeah, I'm working on those.
Cool, thank you.
So are you asking, should you prioritize revenue generating work? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
I would believe so, to fund the program. I mean,
I missed that, I'm sorry.
she,
I said, are you asking whether or not, are you asking us to say whether or not you should prioritize revenue generating work? And you said, yes, it is. And I said, I don't know why not.
Right, that would seem to make sense.
Mhm.
You never know when you're gonna get a donation. You're not. It would be the lifeblood of the program,
Right. So
contracts.
okay. And go ahead.
and we definitely have Nikki as a resource in regards to grant funding if there's ever an opportunity out there to fund the program.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
definitely lean on her, and if you come across anything.
Okay, so just to backtrack, so contract work first, and then in the,
Just revenue generating.
right, absolutely, and then in the event, there's a call-in, right now that's on hold, is that what I'm understanding? Or are we doing call-ins?
Describe another
Type of call.
call-in situation, right?
Like a
I mean,
residential.
it's one thing if perhaps it's the city of Oklahoma City or Choctaw and they've got trash that is, that's different. That's a public entity, presumably on public property,
Right,
which generally would seem permissible
right,
And what's the
as
volume
opposed,
you're asking?
sorry, Don. Well, as opposed to an individual calling in or an association calling in.
right, we did, okay, so example, one example we had was a neighborhood association did call in and request Shine pass out flyers for a neighborhood association monthly meeting. And again, this is something that I would need direction from this board, but that I felt uncomfortable with participants in a neighborhood walking freely and passing out flyers. So I said, let's hold off on that, for now until that's something. And I'm glad you brought that up as for an example on a type of job requested for us to do. But I held off on that just because I'm just thinking liability wise and walking a neighborhood. I wouldn't want somebody to get hit by a car or,
So it would seem that
anything could
the
happen.
DA's opinion request would have several different components to it, right? There's what's permissible for governmental entities, on what's permissible for non-governmental entities or private individuals, right? And then you could go even further. At the request of the city, can you go on to private property? At the request of an individual, can you go on to
Good
private
question. I
property?
didn't think about that.
There's a lot of different
Mhm.
perspectives that probably need to be explored.
Right. I'm glad you brought that. I didn't even think about that. That's one thing we do not do is go on private property. However, like you mentioned, if the city vets a process, and it's a very good question.
Do you have access?
Excuse me. Do you have access to the contracts? Have you gained access to all the
Yeah.
contracts? Okay, in order to read through. Okay, what's acceptable and what's not, and scope of work, and
I'll have to read it again. I believe it's more about the funding piece opposed to exactly where they want us to go and not go. But I'd have to read it again, so I'd hate to answer that question.
What's your volume of call-in versus contract work right now?
I think probably since the day I took it over, which I don't even remember anymore. Days are starting to blend in. there may be 12 or so call-ins.
Per day? Or
No, I'm sorry, altogether.
altogether? Per week?
In the last few weeks,
Probably in the last month.
Month?
you've had 12.
Yeah, about. Do you guys have any other
I think you've
questions?
done well for having your training wheels on.
Yeah. Well, and I love the idea
Well,
of
they're
having
not
a,
tightened even, so.
and I love the idea of having a advisory committee
Sure.
in order for you to hash out ideas and questions
Okay,
and
so
get DA opinions.
Glad you brought that up. To reiterate and go back to that, specifically, what are the things you'd like me to take to the advisory board?
I think you get the DA's opinion.
Mhm.
If you
on the
have,
two
you have
things.
policies and procedures, I think, in place, correct?
For the shine?
Currently,
Correct, yes.
you could take those as well. They could take a look at them. They could make suggestions. They could make sure that they're also in accordance with whatever the DA says. This group can do a dual track, and at the end of the day, the BOCC gets to decide.
Okay.
But, you know, you were handed this with not a lot of time. I think you and your staff have done a really good job
Appreciate that.
trying to keep it going, asking questions. You know, it's clear our office had asked that we implement this 7-1. Some of this could have potentially been worked out, you know, ahead of time on the handoff, but we'll make the best of a really bad situation and move forward and enhance the program. I have every confidence that you'll be able to do that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you for your hard work
Yep.
and your report. Can I get
Motion
a-
to receive the update.
I'll second. You want to hit motion?
Oh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Additionally, I'd like to make a motion to proceed as discussed with regard to how he's going to operate pending the DAs and the suggestions from the two committees.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye. Cool.
Thank you for your discussion around that.
Yeah, thanks for putting it on.
So next, number 3, we will have no action. Karen Kent is not able to join us today in regards to discuss the employees of the month, so we will discuss that at the next meeting. Number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding a $50,000 increase in funding for FY 23-24 for professional services agreement with Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation for economic development services for Oklahoma City. Their in the past contract has been $200,000, and this year they're asking for $250,000. I asked for Jeff to be here today to be able to explain what their need for the increase was, but he was not able to join us. And so if you have questions in regards to that, he has a couple updates that I can provide that he sent via email that I also attached to the agenda item. Do you have any questions?
I do. Is this the item that also went through BET last week?
Yes. So this was went through BET last week. They went ahead and moved $200,000, the contract amount that was provided in the past, and then Cody Compton asked me to add it to policy and governance to discuss the $50,000 increase. The contract itself is work relating to supporting Tinker, the FFA, and industries at Tinker Air Force Base in regards to development.
I read through the attachments. So is this, are we both a member of the chamber and then this is a separate contract with a foundation?
Yes, so this is, we are a member of the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber,
Mhm.
and I believe that the membership, actually, Joe, correct me if this is wrong, as elected officials, they can attend chamber meetings.
I don't know how that works.
Okay. So this is specific to the foundation providing economic development through the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber.
Okay, and so I was just kind of trying to get a comprehensive review because that's new to me. So how much is our membership?
We don't
I've
have a
never
membership.
seen a membership.
Oh, we are not,
Yeah,
oh, that was my
elected
first
officials-
question.
Yeah,
We are
elected
not a
officials can
member.
attend meetings
Okay,
for the Greater Chambers. I'm not aware of any membership that we pay
okay, so this is our
on behalf of the
only,
county.
This has been done, we've paid for this a couple different ways, maybe three now, since I've been here. We've utilized excess bond money out of various Tinker funds, because this is directly related principally to Tinker and the preservation of Tinker and the expansion. We've done this through some economic development funds that the county has. There is a statutory allowance for economic development. We've utilized that, and we may have used general government more recently, a line item within general government for this as well. So that's kind of the history
Thank
of
you.
it. I think it may have started off at 150, gone to 2. There were a couple of years where, although we had a contract with the chamber, we were late getting our payments to them for some reason. So I assume we're up to date on that now. And they want they want
That's
250 now?
250.
and this is an expansion. Is this an expansion? So now it's Tinker and Will Rogers?
No, it's the same contract as what we've done in the past.
I
They
have
were
it in
just
front of me, but it
explaining.
says the Mike Monroney Center, which
Yeah.
I understand to be over at
It's
Will
a,
Rogers.
it's, yeah, it's the FAA.
They were just explaining the reason why there's a $50,000 increase in need of funding, just because. of
So
the
that's a more of a
expansion.
broader focus, not just Tinker, but aerospace generally, as
Aerospace.
I understand it. So, because Mike Monroney is, as you pointed out, FAA over it. And there was a third, but I don't have it in front of me. Okay, those are my questions.
Cody's back. This come out of general government this past year? Yep, okay.
And so historically, it's not been general government, but now it is. I know I asked this a little bit in BET.
Cody, I mentioned, I thought since I've been here, it's come out of 3 places. Tinker bond revenues,
Yes,
excess Tinker bond revenues, economic development,
yes.
a line item in an economic development, and then a line item in general government.
Yeah,
Correct.
recently we've started doing it out of general government because the bond funds that we had in there had dwindled down to the point that we couldn't continue funding it out of that resource. So we've moved to general fund. Last year it was all out of general fund, out of general government.
Are we still in that same position with the bond funds?
I believe so, yes. I can get with the treasurer's office and see, but we had moved to that because we had dwindled those down. And a lot of those funds were one-time allocations, whenever we had, gotten the bond for, those properties and stuff. And so that money, we had it available. And then it just, over time, spending that $200,000 a year, we just
Right.
depleted that account.
If you would check with the treasurer, perhaps we could do a blended funding if we were going to take on this enhanced contract.
Yeah, the additional 50.
I like that.
Yep.
That's preferable to me.
Yeah, we can see if there's other funding sources available.
And then we can add it to the next P&G to discuss.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
what you'd
if
like to do
that's what you'd like.
for another update?
Yeah, if you continue to only have one policy and governance a month, that means we're going to be middle of May.
I'm going to bring that up later under another item.
Okay.
so.
Well, for our recommendation for the contract for next year, it would be in our
What's
in our
coming out of it.
recommendation,
Okay.
because we're going to generally stay flat is what we've talked about.
But not with this.
But there's some things that we may not be able to stay flat with. For instance, on this, if it's a $250,000 contract, at the beginning of July, that full $250,000 will need to be encumbered.
Right.
So,
Thanks.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to discuss at next policy and governance meeting
You
in
can just-
regards to the funding of the
You want to leave this on
50,000
as a standing agenda item? Is that-
standing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a motion to receive the discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the policies, processes, and procedures related to planning, oversight, and administration of the Oklahoma County's ARPA funding.
All right, good morning. Okay, we'll spend some time here just catching up on project status in general. And then Jamie's gonna lead us through community proposals discussion. We can review a little bit about what we've received so far through the community proposal portal.
That would actually be a different agenda item, but
Just getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So in terms of project status and the fund status overall, you can see the story here. We've got a breakdown of the categories and what status the amount of funding is in. So, blue is showing the amount that's been authorized, pink showing the amount that's been obligated, and red showing the amount that's been expended. For the most part, this is the profile of that bar chart on the left is going to remain pretty consistent, pretty much the same shape there, but we'll see more blues turn to pink, more pinks turn to red, and so on. And then that bottom box at the bottom, the gray, representing the remaining amount, will also go down over time as we start to spend the community projects. And so for some reason, the number was left off on that bottom gray box, but that's probably the most interesting number on the page, so I apologize for that. It's the 7.9 million is what's remaining of the total SLFRF that has not been authorized. And then on the right, the donut there just showing how of the 61 projects that have been authorized so far, this is number of projects, and how they're showing how they're progressing so far. So we've got 6 that are under 50% expended, 2 that are over 50% expended, and 8 that have been completed, 100% expenditures. Okay. And then just a look back, since we last met with P&G, there's been a lot on the work plan for the team. So in terms of community proposals, this has been our big lift over the last month or so, where we opened the community portal. We intook 146 proposals from the community. So we worked through all of those just from a triage perspective to make sure we had all the information that we required in the applications, and make sure there were no red flags outstanding as far as that goes. We've done some communicating as well with the applicants, letting them know that they were received or not, or if they were incomplete, and then following up to collect any additional information that was needed. And then similarly, engaging with the community in just a continued way to assist them through the application process and provide some technical support, since it is a very complex process and application, and there's a lot of requirements behind this, so a lot of explanation goes into it. On the compliance checklist, so this is just moving projects forward. These are county projects, so these have already been authorized and spending has started, and so this is a matter of making sure that we're keeping track of all the required documentation and paper trail for those 4 projects listed there. And premium pay, the county clerk's office has been taking the lead on preparing premium pay to go out to all the county staff departments, and we've been supporting them in doing that. The subrecipient agreement was approved by the DA for the Home Finance Authority, and I believe we have the agenda item ready for BOCC to look at that in their next meeting. And then lastly, the quarterly reporting, we are hoping to have done in time for this meeting. And unfortunately, we hit some snags there, so we're going to follow up with that this afternoon and get that submitted to U.S. Treasury. Okay, and then looking ahead to the next set of activities, again, sort of leading into the next P&G meeting, and what we have kind of as the priorities on our plate right now. So continued evaluation of community proposals, and one thing that we'll talk about a little later this morning with you all is about the evaluation criteria that we want to use to help narrow down the list. Like I said, it's 146 applicants, and they far exceed the amount that's available. The amount requested is well over the amount available. So looking for ways to narrow down that list and fit with the priorities of the county and of the districts. So we'll look at that. And then as we start down selecting proposals, we'll work through the risk assessments and create risk profiles for each of the entities that are down selected, and set up the monitoring plan accordingly. We've spotted a few gaps in our compliance framework. We spoke with Chantel and purchasing team yesterday about that. So we're going to work to tighten up our compliance framework and revisit some of the process around that and some of the roles and responsibilities and who's doing what. So this is the framework was meant to evolve as we learned things and figured out some of the nuances of the process. So looking to smooth that out going forward, and also we'll set up a more regular cadence with purchasing and the county clerk, and really collaborate more as a team to ensure compliance going forward.
And in this effort, are we going to see kind of a slowdown? What exactly will that entail?
That's right. We're preparing a communication right now just to hit pause on expenditures that are going out the door right now. So departments will see that later today, most likely. I think we have the draft sent out for review now. So we'll pause probably just for about a week or so, and then pick things back up after we kind of plug some of these gaps.
Perfect. So our departments or elected officials will see in a memo kind of outlining what we're doing, why we're doing it.
Exactly.
And the bottom line is all of this is to try to avoid recoupment at the end of the day.
That's right. And at the end of the day, we'll update the compliance framework and reshare that out to everyone, so everyone will be on the same page and understanding what's changed and that sort of thing.
All right. Thank you.
Number 4 here, just an update to the U.S. Treasury recovery plan. So this is something that's due annually to U.S. Treasury. It's the one that's posted publicly to the county's website. So we'll start the process to update that, and there will be a lot of updates actually, because we've done a lot in the last year. So we'll get that process underway and start drafting versions of that for P&G member review before we do go and post that in July is when it's actually due, but we want to start the process right away. And then just lastly, just some of the ongoing activities that we conduct, so monitoring for project compliance and progress, and doing any ad hoc research that is asked of us.
Just a general question for you and your team. We've been at this quite a while. We meet roughly every 2 weeks. My preference early on in this endeavor would have been that we were meeting weekly, but I didn't get that through this group. Do you see a value in us meeting more often? I think we heard it in another, Cody mentioned with regard to where we're at in our budget on the Tinker contract, we would probably need to meet. I get a sense that even if it's not with you all, but with the number of staff departments that we have working on these types of things, it would be beneficial for us to meet weekly. Do you have?
Yeah, I think there's a value to it. We'd have to work through logistically what that would look like and who we can have present here from our team on a weekly basis. I think it's doable, and might require some changes to some of our standing agenda items just to make sure that we're able to speak to everything that we would need to on any given week.
Chantel, gonna put you on the spot. Would it be beneficial to you and perhaps you, Micah, to have the ability to get in front of this group on a weekly basis as opposed to trying to deal with things 2 weeks later or more?
Just speaking for the purchasing office, I can say I think that would be really helpful, whether it be within P&G or just have some communication on site in person. The reason for that being we're getting purchase order requests daily as regards to ARPA funding, and there has to be a lot of compliance review. We have to make sure all of our documentation is in order, certain federal compliance regarding forms and templates, our policies that we have in place. So little questions pop up every day, and right now we kind of like save these at the end of the week whenever we can get to address them, and we do several meetings right before P&G to try to hash things out. I think if we can attack things more regularly, we can stay ahead of it instead of fall behind, as I think we've done a couple times. So staying ahead of these projects and making sure we remain in compliance is really important. I think a weekly meeting would be helpful, at least for a short time.
So I agree as well that a weekly meeting would be very beneficial. And then also clarification on who carries different processes through. So if we have a subrecipient agreement that's approved, in P&G and then moves to BOCC, who's responsible for making sure that that's signed? I know that we've got several subrecipient agreements that have not been completed, and just having an understanding of who holds that responsibility. And so I am new, and so I am not clear on how that was defined in the beginning. Can you provide some insight on that? Joe, are you aware, Dawn, of whose responsibilities that is?
To have documents signed?
In order to carry things to BOCC and then also follow through and making sure that,
So I think it's been done a variety of ways.
okay.
In the past, some of the committees that I chaired, I would do it. Some of those departments that it directly impacted, they would do it. So I think it can be done a variety of ways.
What would be your recommendation of how it's done moving forward?
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't, as long as it gets on the agenda at the end of the day. I mean, I even recall in the past, we've just asked the clerk's office to make sure it gets onto the BOCC agenda. So
Okay.
we could do
I
potentially
definitely-
do it that way, so
yeah.
long as asking the clerk to put it on, they're just doing the agenda language, but they would need the necessary documents.
I also would like for Accenture to revise the standing agenda items that are on today's agenda. So that way, because they're a little confusing, I know that there's two that just have a little bit different wording. So that way we can maybe just one agenda item that encompasses, the discussion around updates, and then maybe have individual items that need to be discussed more in depth. So that way we can track those better would be helpful. So I would be happy. Currently, for instance, the Oklahoma Housing Authority subrecipient agreement needs to be signed. The Criminal Justice Authority agreement needs to be signed, subrecipient. And then I know that Dawn's working on those. And so I just feel like that they're things.
I'll get the Housing Authority.
You
done.
got the Housing
I work
Authority?
with Jared on a regular basis. I'll take care of that.
Perfect.
Sharon, if you'll send that to me, I'll get it.
Yeah, and I feel like
Good
we can
job.
delegate them in this meeting as well. I just want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, because I received it from Sharon to get it signed, and I don't know who that contact is. So thank you for taking on that subrecipient agreement. So from what I'm hearing is, as we meet weekly, if that's the plan, then we'll kind of delegate who moves items through, such as subrecipient agreements, and who's going to be adding to BOCC agenda, or will we automatically have the clerk's office do that? Just for clarification. Escalated it.
I think just play it by ear. It would seem though that Dawn, I don't want to put something on you and Miles, but since Miles is on the trust,
Absolutely.
if you guys would take
And we've
care of.
already done that by
Perfect.
agreement.
Yeah.
I would support a motion if you want to go there to meet weekly. I just wanted to add that I concur with your thought on how we post this.
that we might, certainly as we go to a weekly meeting, be a little bit, I agree with you that the agenda items can be confusing, and so we might need to get more specific, certainly as we get into the weeds of some of these weekly meetings that have some very specific items we'll be discussing. That would be helpful. I think that's a wise choice.
Okay.
Thank you for that recommendation.
So we have a motion for weekly meetings. Is that weekly P and G meetings, or is that,
Weekly P&G.
okay, so we have a motion for weekly P and G meetings, and then,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Joe?
Who made that motion?
Oh, I thought you did.
Dawn made the motion,
Okay.
and
I'm happy to, so we.
Joe seconded.
There we go.
Jex, you seconded or did
I thought you did.
I? Okay, I would. Oh, okay.
All in favor, say aye. Okay.
When you're drafting those items, just keep in mind, if it has a specific dollar amount in it,
Mhm.
we can always lower the dollar amount, but we can't go above the dollar amount in our discussions.
Okay.
Okay, so
And then clarification. So Sharon, you'll be adding those and moving those up to BOCC, the items that need to be approved. Correct.
I'm sorry,
I just want to make sure she was the clerk's office.
I did.
The items that that we approve here, will they be adding those to BOCC?
The recommendations.
Yes. Into Legistar for BOCC. Who's going to be adding those? The clerk's office.
Do you have the capacity to do that for us? Is it burdensome? Okay. All right. We'll work.
Well, okay, work
Yeah.
that. Okay,
We'll-
just want to
we'll
make sure we
work
have clarification. Okay, so I believe that you've provided an update so far on, actually, the project status report on number 7, 8, and 9. Is that correct?
7 and we've dipped into 8 a little bit and talking about the just some of the process and policy updates that we'll be making.
Okay.
Unless I have those switched.
Okay, and then the remainder of your reports to discuss community.
Yes, that's next on
Okay.
the list.
So do we need to do anything on 6 to move forward, Joe?
I don't.
Okay, we're good. Okay, please proceed.
All right.
Just want to make sure.
Thanks. I'll hand it over to Jean.
Good morning. As Stephen already alluded to, we spent the vast part of the month reviewing the community application. So I just want to review the process. We opened the portal. It was open for exactly a month, and then we closed the portal. We got a significant amount of applications within that last week. Then we have taken all the applications and we have triaged those applications and made sure that they are eligible for the category that they were applying for. And if they weren't eligible, we went back and looked, was there another category that they were eligible within? And then did they meet any of the criteria? So within each of the different categories, there are criteria such as KPIs or a COVID statement to make sure that they made those. And then we did an eligibility assessment. And I'll talk about that here on the next slide. But going forward, the next steps would be next month to bring a recommendation after we get more guidance from this board on how to further evaluate those proposals. And then based on selected proposals, do a risk assessment and compliance training with all these organizations to make sure they know what they're agreeing to, the quarterly reportings, the KPIs, all the federal guidance. And then after they've completed that compliance training to do the subrecipient agreement, would move on to BOCC for authorization and then award disbursement. Any questions on the process to date? All right. And then ongoing compliance and reporting training. This is something that we do regularly with jurisdictions that we would recommend, that we continue to have quarterly updates, either office hours or a training with them so they understand what reporting they have to give back to us 30 days prior to the report being due, to know how to track those. So that could be an option here if we're given the guidance from this board to do those quarterly trainings and quarterly updates.
I think that's a wonderful idea. So
All right, thank
if-
you.
If you want that as a motion, that would be my motion.
And that's training the recipients of the funds.
Yes, so after you guys select 10, 12, 15, to do a required training with them, and then each quarter to continue to do compliance training with them.
No objection to that.
You making a motion?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
So we did get 121 eligible requests, totaling $81 million in request. As you can see, the largest category is that negative economic impact. I do want to note these are the way the Treasury talks about, and so those are those who are negatively impacted by COVID. And then public health was one of the largest categories as well. Within that negative economic impacts, there's a category called assistance to nonprofits that had by far the largest request. It had 26 total applications in assistance to nonprofits. And so these are a breakdown by the category type. You also have public sector capacity. Those are some local governments here within the county that asked for some additional funds, as well as premium pay. You had a couple local organizations asked for premium pay, as well as one business that asked for premium pay because they are within the eligible categories. And then infrastructure, this includes water requests, mostly by public sector entities, and broadband request. So we did deem some ineligible, 23, there was a $19 million request because they didn't fit the category or the intent, or there was something that they didn't, that is required, like a COVID impact statement that they didn't have. So then moving forward, what we're looking for is how to move forward with further evaluating this group to bring forward to you guys. So here's one criteria that we have talked about in the past, a demonstration of need, further evaluating that they provided good data, both qualitative and quantitative, on the need for the county, as well as a project evaluation. Do they have the capacity to do this? Do they have clear and detailed information about their project description? Several have really excellent descriptions on how they will use the funds. Do they have goals? Would this have a long-term impact? And then several are in an evidence-based category. They have to provide some proof that there is an evidence-based intervention to what they are doing. And then also evaluating their budget. Do they provide a very detailed budget, a budget that is very clear and details out how this would be cost effective? And then the last one is the community partners. Did they have any additional partners within Oklahoma County, whether that's other funds that are being submitted or other nonprofits being submitted? The one thing I do want to point out for this, this could be potentially considered a bonus. This was not something that was initially asked for and that we would told them that we would wait in the evaluation. So we may consider with community partners having that a slighter less weight. So with that, I think what we're looking for is guidance on how to further evaluate these proposals and what this board would like to do with the 121 that are eligible.
Now, Jamie, you just said slighter less weight on community partners. Community partners is an item that we don't have data on.
Right. It's if they put it in their budget, we are matching these funds with X, but it wasn't something that was expressly asked in the application.
And we are not going to seek that information.
Unless given guidance by this board to do that.
So without knowledge regarding community partners, I would assume it would be given no weight.
If that's the guidance of this
less weight
board.
I just would prefer we don't give data, give weight to data that we don't know about.
So previously, prior to the two of you, we've had some discussion regarding broadband. As you know, the state receives significant dollars and has kind of undertaken a broadband initiative. My preference would be that we do not entertain any requests related to broadband.
I agree.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we would not consider those requests, broadband-related requests.
Thank you. And I have brought up these within all the categories, so that would be 5.19 and 5.21. We will not consider those two categories for the broadband request.
Sorry, got ahead of myself.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And what we did on this slide, What we highlighted there is where the county has currently appropriated some funds. That's the small percentage number you see there. So the 6% of the county funds that have been gone to those darker colors already have funding towards that category.
Thank you.
Yes.
With regard to the, I guess it would be 5.1, 5.1, 5.12, 5.18, all those water type related infrastructure project requests. The infrastructure bill that passed, are there monies available for smaller jurisdictions to seek funding? Are there other means beyond the county for them to potentially receive funding to address some of these issues?
Within IIJA, there were water funds. I don't have that off the top of my head, who is eligible and what was the amount, but there was additional funding that went towards water.
Okay. Given that we have a significant amount of requests from nonprofits and other entities and a limited amount of dollars at this time, it'd be my preference that we would not consider those, at least in this first round. We may have some money that would roll back to us from projects that either don't make or come in under budget, et cetera. And if we wanted to reconsider, perhaps do that at the time. But given the need that's been expressed by the community for other areas, I think my preference would be to shelve those for now.
So when you're saying those, you've talked about both nonprofits and water, and I wasn't following you.
Pardon?
When you said shelve those, I don't know who falls
Shelve
into those.
the water-related requests
Oh, okay.
from other governmental entities.
And you preface that with how many of these entities also qualify for other types of fundings, or you preface that with how much of water qualifies for other type of fundings. How much of all of these qualify for other types of funding? All of them?
Potentially, I don't have that. I mean, there's hundreds of buckets of federal funds
Right.
and state funds and local funds. I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay. But I would assume water is similarly situated to others on the list with regard to access to other federal funds.
Potentially, within this Infrastructure and Jobs Act, there was a bucket that went towards water, as well as transportation types projects. Did I answer your question? Not specific.
Oh,
no,
that's fine.
Okay. But I hear your sentiment that there are several other types of projects that they could also apply for other types of funds.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see what happens. I would move that we would not consider at this time the water infrastructure requests from local governmental units.
I'm not going to second that.
I'll second. All in favor?
No.
Also motion, will you go back to the slide that has the recommended criteria? Are you asking for a motion in order to proceed in regards to vetting those applications based off of these 4 criteria and being able to provide us, you know, who's
Awaited.
most awaited average for each application?
Yes, I think my only preface is the community partners one. We may not have all the,
Now, right?
and so I think to Dawn's point, prioritizing the top 3 because community partners wasn't something, we will only have that information if they provided it in their budget.
Jamie, just a point of clarification on that last one. The last bullet there, projects expected to benefit those most impacted, disenfranchised, disproportionately impacted communities. That criteria is within the guidance itself. So you're not suggesting that that would be eliminated as a point of review, correct?
Correct. We need to include
Just the
just the community partners part.
And so I already moved, right? We've moved and voted to not consider community partners, as that is not data we have collected and available to consider.
We will have, do they have we won't have, do they have additional partners? But what we will have is, do they target a disenfranchised or disproportionately impacted community? So we're removing that first line, the additional Oklahoma partners on the fourth category.
The act itself gives, I don't know, I'll get my wording right, preference to that third bullet point there on the bottom, community partners impact. The act itself
On
specifically
disproportionately.
mentions.
Franchise, is that what you're talking about?
So
So I think we could weight this for community impact. We would not evaluate it for additional partners, if that's the guidance of this board.
Due to the number of applications that we have, just an idea, would it be good? It would be my preference to give a handful of larger contributions, gifts that make a greater impact throughout the county, rather than giving multiple, due to compliance and audit purposes, smaller donations or awards to nonprofits and businesses. What are your thoughts on that?
having not seen the applicants, the requests, nor the impact they might have in the community, I couldn't give you a fair.
Well, and that was provided to us in regards to the amount and all the applications. Is that something you could also vet and categorize for us? Their reach.
Yes. Yeah.
In
And I
regards
think
to
I think that's what we're
providing-
talking about in that last issue is
Oh.
their reach.
And so
Is there
those are, and to me, those are two different things. Are you talking about the actual dollar amount they've
Mm-hmm.
requested versus the, if you were to put a multiplier or something to that? I assume that's part of what we're talking about when we're talking about reach and weighted.
right. I'm going to throw a hypothetical here, not anyone's application, but if someone asks for $1 million and they're going to impact 1,000 people versus someone that asks for $20,000, that's going to impact 20 people. We would weight the $1 million impact over 1,000 people in a long term much higher than the smaller amount in small people.
Okay.
Amount of
That makes
people.
sense. Thank you.
But not necessarily associated with the dollar figure asked.
Right. We're going to measure what's the total impact. So if there's a $20,000 impact, that's making a large project evaluation demonstration of need. But my hypothesis is some of these, once you get to a really small amount, it's going to have a slightly less impact than an organization that's going to do a larger grant application over multiple years. That's my hypothesis, but we'll bring back the weighting. If that's the guidance, we'll move forward with all of these. We are not going to further evaluate did they match funds or did they have an additional partner, but we are going to move forward with did they have a disproportionately impacted community or disenfranchised community. I don't know if that needs a vote or if that's.
And your I assume, so Joe referenced earlier that that's language taken straight from the federal regs.
Yes.
Is all your weighting, are your analytics also drawn from that, or?
So when we did the eligibility analysis, a lot of that was we were pulling straight from the category that they applied for. Within those categories, there's things like, did you have a COVID impact statement? That's what we checked. Did they have a disenfranchised community? So we have checked a lot of that during the eligibility analysis. So this is more based on what they are applying for. What's the impact of that? They've already gone through the eligibility analysis on the federal regulations.
Okay, and so, but do the federal regs give guidance as to weight or how you do the?
They do not.
Are you then going to utilize a process that you've used other places, or how are you making this?
So they do have certain enumerated uses. Here's very clear things that you can use these projects on, and then here's an overall statement.
So I would assume that those are what partly domino you into eligible or ineligible.
Yes.
as opposed to weighting the value of that use.
Yes.
Okay.
You weren't within this category of how it said it could use it. You weren't in the enumerated uses of how it said you could use it. That's how we pushed some of those into the ineligible category.
But now we're talking about how to weight the value of that use.
Yes.
Correct?
So now these are all eligible uses. They all are for these types of projects. Substance abuse services. How do we weight? This is not the number. I'm just going to make this up. How do we weight the 10 applications that we all got for substance abuse services? How do we weight very similar type programs
And what
that
I
are all
guess I'm
eligible?
asking, right, is do you already have a standard procedure or you're seeking that from us, period?
This is a procedure that has been replicated in other jurisdictions, and I'm looking for this guidance from this board if this is the procedure you guys want us to use to further weight the applications.
I'm comfortable with them moving ahead with the first three and knowing that the disproportionately impacted communities is a part of that development of their recommendation process because it's in the guidelines itself.
And so as Joe says, development of the process, these are somewhat generic terms, though maybe pulled from the federal regs. Are you going to come back to us with a more detailed analysis of how you propose to weight, like what value A has versus B? Are you going to let us know that? Or are you wanting us to just say yes to these 3 rows today and you'll go forward and put some type of value on A and a different type of value on B, but we won't know that till later, or we will never know that?
We can propose weighting. I think unless this body wants to propose weighting to these or have these all equal, demonstration need, project evaluation, funding, budget as 3 equal weighting.
What are you, and am I to have interpreted this to be these were equal before I started talking about weighting, or no?
I know we have sent a weighted criteria. I don't have that in front of me. Of these were slightly different weights. So demonstration of need being one of the strongest. Community partners, I think we had a smaller weighting.
So I should already have that.
You may, but I just don't have it in front of me. I think when we sent an additional evaluation criteria.
Do you all have that?
I didn't have a clear understanding.
I would like to have it and
Okay.
sort of be certain. Certainly, if we're going to meet every week, that also gives us an opportunity to get a little bit more granular with this.
So we'll come back with how much weight towards each. For example, 20 points, 10 points for a total of 50 points evaluation of each.
And then those projects that are impacting those various communities by census tract, is it determined by census tract, if I'm remembering the regs correctly?
There was a couple different ways that you could prove a disenfranchised or disproportionately impacted community. A qualified census tract was one of them.
And in doing projects with, I may not remember this right, it's been a while, doing projects within those areas, if you will, had a higher presumptibility of being appropriate. Is that a fair?
There is a preference towards those within the disenfranchised and disproportionately impacted communities.
Okay. And so it would seem to me that whatever the gamut of the proposal is, if it was in one of those areas, whether it was southwest Oklahoma City, northwest Oklahoma City, central Oklahoma City, near northwest, that those would be ranked higher over a similarly situated program in another area that, for lack of a better term, is more affluent.
We can do that if that's the guidance of this board. That is, Treasury does place that preference.
But that's not a mandate.
No, it's just a preference.
Okay, that would be my preference.
I look forward to seeing what you put together before we make any further decisions as it comes to exact weighting.
Yeah, and I confirmed we did share the evaluation criteria alongside the slides that we sent you last week. So I think that was on Thursday afternoon. And I just want to say too that like at the end of this, we're just trying to get to, what is that what is the criteria that's important to you all, and how do you want to weight that? These are just recommendations. We've gone through other sets of recommendations in the past. So we can take this and develop a weighting system and bring that back to you as a proposed scorecard, if you will. Or if you wanted to come up with your own criteria and weighting, you could even do it that way, and we could take that and consolidate it between the three of you.
My preference would be that you all, other than my preference that this money serve those that have been disproportionately impacted, as it's stated in the guidance, as a preference. My overall, I would prefer you all to develop different types of criteria and bring that back to us so that we're not having to do that. You have the ability to reach out to other communities, perhaps that you're serving or that you know of that has done this already. But I think it's important to keep within the spirit of the law and the guidance. And if this money is intended to help those that need it the most, and those are disproportionately impacted communities, and we all have them.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's true. And it's like, I think, we've got, what was it, 146 proposals out there, and, probably it's the case that most of them would impact us. So it's being able to narrow it down further and get to that decision. So we'll put together a proposed scorecard and share that all with you individually ahead of the P&G meeting, and we'll get your feedback on that and see if we can consolidate feedback in that way and then have something ready to go for the next round.
We want
You
to
good with
Thank
that?
you. Yeah,
Yep.
that's very helpful to
That'd be
me. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I'm looking through what you sent the other day, and I'm not seeing exactly that, but I'll go back and
And I can't find it.
review it.
What, Don,
Yes, sir.
what day was that? Do you recall?
It was sent back in February.
In February.
Oh,
That
so
I
would
thought
be-
you meant this.
The actual weighting of each of these categories, but we will resend that, and this body will move to adopt what the weighting of each was.
Thank you.
It's just that we've gone back and forth on this several rounds, and just trying to get to that place where we can commit to a set of criteria or a set of priorities and pin that down.
And does taking out, for instance, the broadband help or change that at
yeah,
all?
absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And if you can look at this. Sorry, Jamie.
Well, it does help very marginally, only because you got so few in the infrastructure category, so we reduced 121 minus 9, but it does reduce down the number being evaluated.
This is a good slide to look at this question too, because you can look at this from a category perspective. If there are wholesale categories that you want to eliminate from consideration, like you just did for broadband, that's perfectly fine. Like that's within your prerogative. If you want to look at it from an organization type, like if you want to focus on nonprofits or education, for example, you could do that. So there's a number of ways that you can come up with this criteria.
Right.
But we can't make those decisions. Those are policy decisions.
And I thought I heard Joe say earlier, but if he didn't, and that was just my misunderstanding, that possibly you would come back to us, and I'm not trying to give you extra, but several different options of means by which to wait. Or I assume, again, as we've discussed many times, this isn't remaking the will. I assume that you have
Yeah, we do this all the time.
right, other formats so that we can compare and contrast and kind of come to a consensus.
Can I speak for just a moment? I'm a county and work at the law library. We did request in premium pay a grant. If there's a possibility that other county offices could have a little bit of priority in how you're alluding or how you're getting to, it would be appreciated because we're a county too. We're just not funded in part, and so we weren't included in the other. So we had to do a community and with public defenders.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll consider that in those recommendations. That evaluation. Thank you.
I think our guidance is we're going to take the weighted criteria, come back with a scorecard for this board to vote on the final scorecard. Yes. All right. I think something additionally when we go through the evaluation in May, when you guys get the weighting to consider, is if you want to set an award cap. And There are several that are $1 million ask, $2 million ask, large ask for the amount remaining. And then something else to consider once you see all the evaluations in May, there are several organizations that have multiple awards. Do you want to set a one award per organization priority? I think once you see all those evaluations, you'll be able to further make those recommendations. And then additionally, we've already done this about were there any priority categories per expenditure? And so what this body did is they eliminated all in the infrastructure category. We talked about that. And I think all the open topics we've already covered, the subrecipient agreement management, who's going to manage that. It sounds the vote was there will be a proxy per each subrecipient agreement on who will move that forward. Is that how I captured?
Did we vote against infrastructure or just water?
Well, the only categories are all the water projects are in 5, and the only other ones are broadband.
Yes, so if you recall, we took broadband off the table, and then we
Took water off the
eliminated water
Okay,
for the time being.
I didn't know what else
Yeah.
was categorized under.
And those are the only 2
Right.
under
Okay,
infrastructure.
thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely. So for the subrecipient agreement, to make sure that I captured that there will be a proxy per each subrecipient agreement that is going to move the subrecipient agreement along. We want to make sure that there's a point of designee. This says the chair, but this board already voted on some proxy to move those along. Is that correct?
So what?
So when we get a
Proxy, Jamie, I didn't follow.
when we get a subrecipient agreement, we want to make sure there's someone pushing it along the entire process that sends it to the DA and also puts it on BOCC. It could be the chair of policy and governance, but we would want to assign each subrecipient agreement to a person.
Right.
For example,
And I feel like Joe made the recommendation that since we're meeting weekly, that we would just delegate that
whoever,
each meeting. Is that what you heard?
Right, but I'm hearing you, that I thought we were sort of talking in-house, and now you're talking about award, once the award has been given.
this is, for example, the home finance subrecipient agreement. Joe said he would take that along and move it to the,
Yes, once
yeah.
we've already done, as opposed to subsequent, is that what you're asking?
This is once it's already done as well, just to make sure that we have a point of contact that nothing gets held up.
Okay.
And so we'll just make sure to assign those as they get passed to make sure
And
that
you'll
we,
track who's been assigned.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
that'll be helpful.
so that we just,
Based off of relationships or trustees, I think that's great.
just so that nothing gets held up and can move along.
Yeah.
And then we already talked about the weekly meetings with purchasing and finance. We will also have those as internal check-ins. Do we need a designee from this board to attend any of those weekly meetings?
I thought our weekly meetings were. Are they the weekly meetings with?
I'm thinking of more of an internal meeting just to discuss projects and processes.
I think you guys could have your internal
Okay.
meetings, and then at that weekly meeting, provide us an update of those discussions and any action items that come out of that. That's kind of my thought process in having a weekly meeting.
I like that.
I do too. Yeah, so you'll just provide a report from that weekly meeting. Chantel, Micah, Nikki, whomever is available.
I don't think we need a designee.
Right, I think to what they're saying, to answer your question, that a P&G member won't be present at any internal meeting, but that will work together to report at the weekly P&G meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I was understanding.
Yes.
Thank you for that guidance. And then we will move forward, as Joe mentioned, updating the compliance framework. We are going to send the communications to directors about this increased reviews, make sure that they know that there's a pause for a week until the new and updated compliance framework goes out to make sure that all controls are being checked along the way. And that is all around ARPA. Any additional thoughts, questions?
So is there any way, just so we make sure, just a thought, that there is anything that falls through the cracks whenever we have those weekly meetings?
Mhm.
Can you keep track of, say, for instance, the Oklahoma Housing Authority, since we're talking about that has moved along through the process, and then mark that as complete in regards to anything that we need to do on our end other than, so we understand like when it's been funded, that it's marked as complete essentially.
I think we can work
With the system.
on how to come up with a status report so you know this project, and this project is being held up's not the subrecipient agreement. This one and this one, we are reviewing purchase orders. So some way so that you guys know the status. Is that what I'm hearing?
That'd be helpful, Chantel. I feel like that would be helpful. Okay.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you both.
And thank you, Chantel and Micah and Nikki and all those that have worked closely with everyone in order to establish processes and procedures and made the recommendation of weekly meetings. We want to make sure that we're successful and that we keep things rolling. So I appreciate everyone's collaboration and communication.
Agreed.
So do I have a motion to accept the report from Accenture
So
and
moved.
move forward?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any citizen participation in the room? I don't see any citizens joining us today. Any board comments, Dawn?
No, ma'am.
Joe?
Thank you.
None for me. Any new business?
No new business.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.